Hi everybody, welcome to Josiah is Right, and I'm going to talk to you about the history of muscle. That's my muscle guy face. That probably look pretty silly, but Penny, what's your muscle guy face? Show me your muscle guy face. Anyway, the history.
In the 1980s, wrestling, along with transforming robot cars, was a big deal. And, at least in my world, little else was that popular. Cashing in on that craze, Mattel brought us He-Man. I mean M.U.S.C.L.E. Like those transforming VW bugs, the origins of these half-naked little, sometimes mohawked men goes farther back in time. To the country of Japan. No, not that far back in time. Ah, that's better, and yet somehow much, much worse. What Americans know as M.U.S.C.L.E. was originally a manga titled Kinnikuman, created by Yoshinori Nakai and Takashi Shimida, who worked together as Yaratamago, all of which I'm sure I pronounced incorrectly, as I had to repeat it several times to do this voiceover. Overlapping with its dumbed-down American cousin, it also ran for a whopping 137 episodes as a cartoon by Toei Animation from 1983 to 1986. It was designed as a parody of Ultraman and similar characters. The plot was wonderfully Japanese and basically involved intergalactic wrestling for the throne. It was also probably too violent for American kids at the time. But not for me. I totally could have handled it. The characters' personalities were largely defined by their designs, and their designs were often awesomely absurd. For example, the main character, Kinnikuman, was Muscle Man because he looked like a muscle man. While the toys were produced by Mattel in the United States, they were originally produced by Bandai. So we should quickly talk about Keshi. Keshi is derived from Keshi Gomu, which actually means eraser. Keshi is simply small rubber collectibles. They're small toys that are infectiously collectible. Returning from Japan to the United States, 3-year-old me was likely at high risk of choking on a tiny piece of pink plastic when M.U.S.C.L.E. invaded in 1985. M.U.S.C.L.E. stood for millions of unusual small creatures lurking everywhere, proving some acronyms are totally silly and completely unnecessary. While not millions, at least dozens of them could be found throughout my parents' house. Officially, there were 236 figures released in the US. While distributed via vending machines in Japan, US figures came in 28 packs of 4 carded figures, and garbage cans of 10, with the latter 2 being randomly packaged, resulting in a wonderfully terrible trading card-like possibility of duplicates, also resulting in often intense trade negotiations. The American plot was much less Game of Thrones, and much more mid-80s WWF, as Muscle Man and the Thugbusters battled Terrible and his Cosmic Crunchers, and that was it. Which again, for me, was plenty. To be honest, without a cartoon, I wasn't even aware of any story until today. Well, about a week ago. For the figures, there was also a belt figure case, a Rock'em Sock'em Robots-esque ring, it was glorious, an interesting looking board game that I think was some kind of dance competition, a horrible NES game, and a magnificent, totally epic checklist poster. Well, the initial figures were flesh tone. Okay, yeah, I'll admit it. They were pink. Later figures were a rainbow of colors, which I didn't care for, as I feel the detail of the figures shine more in that flesh tone. Yeah, it's still pink. Similar to other toys thus far covered in this series, the value was apparent to kids and parents alike. You get a lot for a relatively small amount of cash. In the United States, the most minimum purchase got you 4 action figures. That's pretty good for play value. Buy a couple of them, and you have an awesome good time. While Playthings magazine listed it among the 10 best-selling toy lines of 1986, its championship reign proved short-lived. The line was killed, bodies land by Mattel. Being unlicensed from Bandai, the profits weren't as big as other Mattel properties, such as He-Man or Barbie. In Japan, you could still get them from vending machines. Most of what you see here are modern figures purchased by Paul last year. And you can still read the comics. In fact, in Japan, there's a much more detailed and in-depth history than I'm even touching on here, some of which did make it to the United States. So you should really look into it, including some really, really cool action figures. In the US, they haven't really been seen in their original form since the 1980s. Although in 2015, Super 7 began releasing Masters of the Universe muscle figures, a fitting crossover for any 80s kid. Since then, Super 7 has expanded to still cool, but slightly less logical connections such as Alien and Iron Maiden. Hopefully, in the near future, we see some legit, more authentic muscle figures. In the meantime, if you're in Japan, hit up a vending machine for me.
Thank you guys for watching. So these histories are part of a series. So you can see the short form ones that I do with myself and Penny here, and the longer form ones where I'll have this history attached to a longer part where Paul and I talk about our personal experience with the toys, a little bit of background that we know, things like that. So be sure to check those out. Penny will like them because she can grow up playing with some awesome, awesome toys, right? Thank you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment, and Penny and I will see you at the toy store.